Hello, everybody, and again, welcome to our April SUD Community Workshop. We're going to get started here now. We are today having Gwendolyn Bammel from Eastwood be our presenter on trauma, mindfulness, and substance use disorders. We are super excited to have her here. So I'm just going to do quick intro things that I can't remember what the nice fancy word for that is called. But just quickly, if you want your cameras on, you're more than welcome to. Please stay muted the entire time. If you have a question, use the raise hand feature or in the chat, and we are monitoring it on the side so we can take a pause to let Gwendolyn know when there is a question with the natural pause to make sure we're not, interrupting things mid-thought or anything like that. Please stay for the entire workshop to gain the 1.5 McBab CEUs, and they are specific. You need to make sure you stay the whole time and complete the evaluation at the end, which we will give out the link to at the end, and that will be open until noon tomorrow. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Gwendolyn.
Good evening, and thank you all for joining me. I'm glad to be here in person with 3 people. And welcome to all of you online. Glad you could be with us. I am a person in long-term recovery. What that means for me is that I have been attending meetings and staying abstinent from all substances for 26 years. And at about 2 years in, I got into the field, went back to grad school because I was going to save the world, and then figured out that I really could only work on myself and maybe share some things with others that might be helpful. So I'm grateful to be able to be in the setting where I can share some of my own experience of what has worked and really help to move us forward in this trauma-informed world. I do work at Ascension Eastwood Recovery Center. I've been doing that for 9 years. It's an all-men's Medicaid residential substance abuse program for guys who both have addiction as well as co-occurring disorders. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we have all come to understand over the years is that addiction really is a disease that starts from trauma, that starts as a reaction to something in our lives where we need to escape or survive. And when we're in that survival mode, the amygdala is what is heightened. We have that fight or flight response, and our brain says, if I can fight this, I'm going to. If I can't, I will run. And I don't have to run faster than the saber-toothed tiger. I just have to run faster than the person next to me, right? So we know that amygdala response kicks in, but in substance abuse treatment, we haven't always taken that into account. When that trauma mind, when that fight or flight mode is engaged, we don't think straight. And yet all of the treatment that we do is really cognitively based. We want to think it through. We want to imagine the consequences. It's all involving using our brain and making better choices. But in that survival mode, I really can't do that. The parts of my brain that shut down when we're in survival mode are the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that allows us to observe, notice, rather than react. So we're able to think about it and think it through before reacting. Or the hippocampus, which stores our memories, which allows us to differentiate between what's currently happening versus what has happened in the past. So when that trauma button is triggered and the amygdala kicks into high gear, my brain can't tell me that I'm no longer in danger. It tells me you're in danger just like you were when you were a kid. And when we're in that mode, we can't think straight. And so I'm not even thinking about calling my sponsor. I'm not even thinking about going to a meeting. When I'm in that mode, I either want to fight or flight, and we'll talk about some other options. But when we're in that mode, we really want to get out of the situation. So We're going to talk about how to calm that mode, how to help us over time so that we can spend more time in problem-solving mode and less time in that survival mode. But first, we have to understand the central nervous system. There's two different responses. Many of you have, I'm sure, heard this before. I'm going to start on the right side. The sympathetic nervous system response, I always remember that it's sympathetic because I can feel it. I feel the fear. I react to the fear. So that sympathetic nervous system response is the side of us where our heart beats faster, our brain goes into like, okay, I have to respond now, panic mode, and it pulls all of the blood back from digestion and from our extremities and pumps it all to the heart so that we can run faster and get away from that saber-toothed tiger. And that's really great when there's a saber-toothed tiger. But I don't know about you, even though my fight or flight kicks into gear often, I haven't actually been in danger in quite a while, right? Minus a car accident or, you know, some of those things that we face that may actually be life-threatening. Most of us are not in mortal danger every day. So that sympathetic nervous system sometimes learns to kick into overdrive and to be more active. On the left-hand side, you'll see the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the side that teaches us it's okay, you can relax now. That you can calm down, slow the heart rate. There's nothing threatening us, so now we can digest our food. You know, everything can function in a more calm sense. And when we're in that mode, our body comes out of panic and learns to relax. If we have experienced a lot of trauma, we spend more and more time in that sympathetic nervous system, and our body forgets how to relax appropriately. So we have to actually train our brains to relax again. You know, this is a mindfulness training. I'm guessing some of you online have your phones out, are multitasking, are doing some of those things that we've all learned how to do. And yet that keeps us on high alert. The constant Facebook feed or alerts coming at us from email keeps us on high alert. There's so many things that we do where it's jumping from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, where our sympathetic nervous system is constantly responding, constantly alert. So for the rest of this training, I'm going to challenge you to put down the cell phone, to be mindful as we talk about mindfulness, and try to do that. And I know it's hard. So, in that sympathetic nervous system response, we have fight or flight. You know, I think these responses are well known to most of us if you've been in the field for a while, but fight mode can look very different depending on the person. So it can be yelling, screaming, mean words. It can actually be hitting, kicking, biting, throwing, punching. But it can also be when we move into blaming, deflecting, defensiveness, or trying to control a situation. I know that I have some control issues, and when I'm in that mode where I feel like I have to control everything, that is that fight or flight response. And so if we're going towards whatever feels threatening, if we're reacting in that more aggressive way, we feel more powerful. It feels better. I feel like I have overcome the saber-toothed tiger. And that's fine in the moment. It's not fine when it's continual and when it's an overreaction to something that's really not as threatening as it seems to be. That flight response, on the other hand, is wanting to escape and run away and feeling fidgety, restless, right? Like the legs tapping is often part of that flight response where I want to get going, I want to run away. And we often move into procrastination, avoidance. How often have we needed to take care of some task and instead find ourselves doing everything but that, right? That is that flight mode. So when we are in that more anxious, panicky response, that's flight. The ones that we don't always talk about are freeze, flop, and fawn. Those are pure trauma responses, right? So fight and flight are natural. We're supposed to have them. When something scary happens, we're supposed to move into fight or flight mode. But when we learn over time that it's helpless or useless, when we learn over time that the scary thing keeps happening, then we learn some other ways of approaching it. So freeze is when we start to disassociate and shut down. If you've ever been in a conversation where something pushes a button and all of a sudden you're lost and you can't even remember what that person was saying, right? Those are those dissociation moments. Flop, where we literally start to lose physical control. For me, that feels like a numbness in my arms when I go into that mode. For other people, they feel it more in their legs, right? But that feeling of not being able to do anything with your body. And fawn is when we go into, can I please the person who seems scary to me? Can I do everything possible to make them happy? I have a mom who is a narcissist, and I've had plenty of bosses who are narcissists. And that fawn mode, man, can be really helpful, right? It is a learned behavior to an impossible situation, right? But fawn over time means that you completely lose your sense of self. You lose your sense of who you are and what you want. So those trauma responses, when you start to notice that a client is doing freeze, flop, or fawn, we need to ask ourselves, why are they people-pleasing so much? Where does that come from? What was it that was going on where they realized, they could not speak up for themselves and where they have to make that other person happy? Sometimes as a therapist, it's the client is saying what they think I want to hear, right? When really there's nothing I particularly want to hear. I don't go into it with a preordained idea. But when a client is doing that, it's that learned response that I have to make everybody else happy in order to be okay. So, what is the question? Does an individual have only one response, or can they go back and forth between the different responses? Yes, we have all of the responses. I don't know if I can go back a slide. Yep. So yes, absolutely. When somebody has grown up with trauma, they typically have all of these. And so we'll have a primary response, right? That response that's more instinctual than the others, but it's a split-second decision that our amygdala makes to decide, can I fight, can I run, or do I need to freeze, flop, or fawn? So yes, we absolutely move through all of those. So addiction is a coping skill. All of those ways of responding to trauma feel horrible except for fight. Fight feels horrible after the fact. After we do it, we're like, oh, why did I say all those things? That wasn't nice. I shouldn't have done that, right? But all of those other approaches feel horrible. Addiction is a way to escape that, to avoid whatever is pushing our buttons, and to be able to feel immediately better. we have an immediate dopamine response that says, you're okay, this feels good. So no matter what is going on that has pushed our buttons, we need to understand addiction from that standpoint, and that if I can't give people an immediate coping skill, they will go back to using. And so there are certain ones we're going to walk through today that really teach us how to immediately calm down that fight or flight response, how to calm down that trauma response and re-engage the brain. So how do we retrain the brain? Repetition, repetition, repetition. If trauma happened over and over and over, I'll give an example. With having a narcissistic mom, she was always condescending. And so when that happens over and over and over, when no matter what I do, it's not good enough, no matter what I do, it's not her way, and if it's not her way, therefore it's wrong, so I must be wrong. When you get that all day, every day growing up, that has trained my brain to believe there's something wrong with me. I have every reason to feel ashamed and no reasons to feel proud, right? So that repetition in my life taught me those lessons. Well, if we're going to retrain the brain, then we need repetition, repetition, repetition on a positive sense. We need to retrain the brain that I am okay in this moment. One of the things that I love about residential treatment, yes, we do groups, yes, we do individuals, yes, we do all of the things that we do, but what we really do is in that moment when a guy is having an absolute shame attack, we sit with them and we teach them how to face that. In that moment, when somebody goes into a full-on panic attack, we de-escalate that and teach them how to sit with it. We don't fix it. That's going to keep happening in their lives. But we teach them how to face it, how to sit with it, how to be present with their own experience, and then how to challenge it so that it kind of turns down the volume of the panic and the shame and the helplessness. So that retraining the brain in a residential setting means that over and over every day when that stuff is happening, we get to be present with those guys and really teach them in real time how to live through those moments. When we have once a week therapy, they may not be having a shame attack or panic attack at the time of our session, right? So we have to kind of learn how to address it after the fact as well, and to teach some techniques that help us to, again, retrain and be present with that. So if we've always learned to be on alert, we really struggle to relax, and that is part of what feeds addiction. Addiction is sort of that instant relaxation, and we have to teach our bodies, but people with trauma struggle to be present in their own bodies. We struggle to be in our heart and mind and to sit with what's present. I remember way back, like 24 years ago, I had a professor that said, addiction is a disease of not being able to be in the present moment, to not sit with what is. And so if I can't sit in my heart and in my mind and in my body, then all of these mindfulness techniques feel really uncomfortable. And I find a lot of what I end up doing is validating, acknowledging, yes, it's horribly uncomfortable. Yes, we suck at meditation. Everybody sucks at meditation. If you've ever tried it, you know every human being does not naturally meditate. Our brain jumps all over the place, swinging from tree to tree, thought to thought, memory to future, all over the place. And maybe I get a moment in there where my brain gets to relax. And that's what we're doing. We're training the brain to get to that point. But we have to be able to handle that discomfort first. So one of the first techniques I like to teach is soothing through the five senses. So I'm going to ask you all to get comfortable. This is maybe dangerous when we have an hour left. I might put you all to sleep. So get comfortable for a moment. If you feel okay with it, allow yourself to close your eyes. Take a couple deep breaths. And take yourself somewhere imaginary where you feel calm and safe. It doesn't need to be anywhere real. And as you take in all of the aspects of that place, notice one aspect that really helps you to feel a sense of peace. And as you spend some time in that place, notice a second aspect that allows you to feel truly at peace. What is a second aspect that is soothing to you in that place? And take a moment and breathe in all of your surroundings. And when you feel ready, allow yourself to wiggle your fingers and toes and open your eyes. Now that I've put you all to sleep, ask yourself, which of the five senses was the first thing that I thought of that was soothing? So for me, I have two places that I go. One is real, one is imaginary. The real one is on the chair in my room with the fuzzy, fuzzy blanket. It's so soft. And so my primary sense that I soothe with is touch. Touch is the most powerful for me. I grew up on a farm with horses and other animals. At times when I was upset, touch with those animals was what could soothe me immediately. And so touch was hardwired in from a very young age. My second soothing sense is my dog and petting him. Again, touch. I'm a one-sensory kind of person. But ask yourself, what is it that you notice in terms of your primary soothing sense? And if you feel comfortable, maybe put some details in the chat of, whether it's the soft blanket, and that's touch, or the dog that's touch, or the view of a sunrise, or the sound of rain. Would anyone in the room like to share theirs?
Actually, I find it interesting because I always have two places I go. I go to a meadow and I go to the beach. I never realized until just now, and I've been doing this for a very long time, in sixth grade when I was taught mindfulness in sixth grade, that I like the meadow because the wind reminds me to breathe. I don't know what sense that is, but that just kind of came together just now, and I feel very enlightened. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. And wind is touch. It is. Would anyone else like to share? We have looking at the vastness of the ocean and listening to the waves, petting my cat, Kentucky and the wind.
We have chirping birds.
Yeah.
The sound of the wind in the trees on the mountainsides, hearing inspirational and motivational videos, speeches, taste, eating something delicious, the creek at my family's place in the country, listening to the water, the sound. And I feel sun and warmth on my skin, the color of water, and the smell of the ocean. All those are beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you guys for sharing those. And in doing that, we learn our primary soothing sense and our secondary soothing sense. What I have found over the years is that while taste is a soothing sense, absolutely, it has never, I mean never, not with a single client that I have worked with, ever been the first or second sense that somebody goes to. When I have them go to that imaginary place, it is always one of the other senses. And yet, I'm kind of getting on my soapbox about how we use food addiction as an escape. So I'm going to get off that soapbox, but we do. And so let us learn through some other senses. And if we're going to use taste, a cup of tea and that warm, soothing, like the taste along with the sense of touch and that warmth can be a really soothing way to calm ourselves down without it having to have extra consequences. Because most of the other senses do not have consequences with them. Taste sometimes does. So, soothing through our five senses, when I teach people how to do that, then in a moment's notice, they can go to that field or the ocean or that chair with their dog. In a moment's notice, they can recall that place. I'm also trained in EMDR, so I'll often do bilateral stimulation to help them really set that in their brain and re-engage with that at any time. So the other things that help, meditation. There's a million different forms of meditation. We're going to talk about some of them today. Taking a bath, right? Just how often do we take an hour to just do nothing? That's such a rare thing in this world. And so taking that time out to just take care of ourselves. Ooh, Amanda, I love the sunrise picture or sunset, whichever. Thank you for sharing that. So what are some of the other ways that you guys have found to almost immediately calm yourself and teach yourself to come down from that heightened response? Feel free to put it in the chat. Breathing. How often we forget to do that. Music. Yeah, walking in the woods, being anywhere in nature. Be still. And when we've worked in this field for a while, we find those ways of calming ourselves. Yoga or stretching, prayer and breathing. And we'll talk about some different types of breathing. Yep, grounding ourselves through the five senses. Cup of coffee. Yeah. A hug. Yeah, absolutely. We have a large, as in tall, guy that works at our program named Eric. Shout out to Eric. Gives the best hugs because his arms are so long. So when I'm having a tough day, there's nothing better than a hug from him. Yeah. So working in this field, we learn how to take care of ourselves. And often If we're doing a 50-minute session, we have 10 minutes within which to get our notes done, go to the bathroom, and decompress ourselves before we go into the next session. And so we have learned the power of one breath, right? Just that one breath can take us from a 10 out of 10 to a 6 out of 10 in a heartbeat, right? So we find those ways that work for us. And so as much as we're talking about a bunch of different techniques today, I think it's important with our clients to say, find what works for you. Try it until you find it. One of the things I love to do is physical grounding. And oftentimes, when people do like progressive relaxation, they start from the top of their head down. I find with trauma, there's so much going on in my head, and my heart can be all over the place, and my stomach might be in knots, that I don't really want to focus on the top half. So I focus on my big toe. Focusing on my big toe in my shoe on the floor. And there's nothing wrong with my big toe. There's no anxiety in my big toe. My big toe has no need to control anything or react to anything, ever. And then I focus on the rest of my toes. And then the balls of my feet, the arches of my feet, the heels of my feet. You get the picture, right? So going through each of those and taking a breath with each one allows the body very quickly to calm down and center and get out of the heart-mind reaction that's happening and instead get back to the present moment where I really am okay. I really am safe. So, some other techniques for retraining the brain. The first one is a Buddhist meditation, and it goes through 3 different phases. This is a Mahayana or Theravada style Buddhism, and you don't have to be Buddhist in order to repeat these phrases to yourself. In fact, nobody's asking you to be Buddhist. I'm not. But it goes through 3 phases. First, directing some of this towards yourself, then towards others, and then outwards in all directions toward all beings. And so do this with me for a moment. Find a comfortable way to sit. Allow your feet to rest on the floor that you're on. Notice yourself sitting or laying in whatever surface you're on. Let your head rest naturally at the top of your spine. Soften your eyes. Relax the jaw. Let your shoulders fall naturally away from your ears. Breathe into the belly and softly expand the belly with each exhalation. Repeat silently to yourself. May I be at ease. May I be safe from inner and outer harm. May my heart be filled with loving kindness. Again, repeating to yourself, may I be at ease. May I be safe from inner and outer harm. May my heart be filled with loving kindness. May I be at ease. May I be safe from inner and outer harm. May I be filled with loving kindness. And expanding that energy out to all of the people that you know, towards whom your feelings may be mixed, pleasant, unpleasant. Recognizing that all human beings want to be at ease, want to find peace. Thinking of those people in your life, sending them the same words. May you be at ease. May you be safe from inner and outer harm. May your heart be filled with loving kindness. Understanding that your mind will wander, and when it does, gently bring it back to your breath and the phrases. May you be at ease. May you be safe from inner and outer harm. May your heart be filled with loving kindness. May you be at ease. May you be safe from inner and outer harm. May your heart be filled with loving kindness. And then sending out waves in all directions, recognizing that all beings, from the tiniest of insects to the largest of giants, want to be at ease, want to be happy. Sending out waves of energy from your heart center in all directions across the earth. May all beings be at ease. May all beings be safe from inner and outer harm. May the hearts of all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all beings be at ease. May all beings be safe from inner and outer harm. May the hearts of all beings be filled with loving kindness. Imagining these waves covering the entire world. May all beings be at ease. May all beings be safe from inner and outer harm. May the hearts of all beings be filled with loving kindness. Letting go of the phrases, bring your attention back to your breath and body. Notice your heart center and any sensations that are present there. You may notice a tingling in the tips of your fingers or the palms of your hands. As we bring this meditation to a close, allow yourself to wiggle your fingers and toes. Take a deep breath and open your eyes. And then I highly recommend that you stretch, get some blood flowing, or you're going to fall asleep for the rest of the training. So, one of the reasons I love that style of meditation more than other styles, and there are so many different ways to meditate, but one of the reasons that I love it is because my trauma response, like so many others, is that I am in danger from somebody else. And when I begin to recognize that that other person is a human being, that all beings are suffering and all beings want to be happy, and sometimes we just don't know how to get there. So it allows us to send that same energy not just towards ourselves, but sometimes we'll focus it on, when we say, may you be at ease, focus on the difficult person in your life, recognizing that they deserve to be happy too. And that's a hard thing to do when we have a lot of resentments. So one of the other options is retraining the brain. This is a technique from Tara Brach, amazing meditation teacher. You can find a lot of her stuff on the app Insight Timer. There's classes that she's recorded and meditations she's recorded. Definitely a useful app. But RAIN basically says the R stands for recognize. To just recognize what is happening. I don't have to judge it. I don't have to react to it. I can just recognize, wow, my flight response has really kicked in right now. I am very aware that I want to run, right? Allowing that experience to be there. Well, isn't this interesting that I want to run? I wonder why that is. Can I lean into it and just feel that experience? So I'll give an example. I was at a meeting a couple months ago. I was about to go visit my family, and a person at the meeting was kind of forceful with their opinion, and it triggered, probably because I was thinking about going to visit my mother, it triggered that whole flight reaction. I've never had to do this before, but I literally had to leave the meeting and go into the basement at the meeting and hide, right? Like, for whatever reason, that whole flight experience was there, and I wanted to get the heck out of there. I don't know why I didn't just leave. That maybe would have been better. But instead I went to the basement, and I found myself, like, I wanted to pick up a book. I wanted to distract myself, avoid it. Instead, I went, wait a second, Gwendolyn, you're just supposed to sit with this. And can I let myself feel full panic and just sit with it? It didn't kill me. It didn't kill me. And then investigate it, right? We can't just investigate it, because I can look at what's happening, investigate it, figure it out, and judge myself for it, right? But this is with interest and care, right? Investigate it like I would with a friend. Hey, what happened for you in that moment? What was that like for you? What was it about? Why do you think you reacted that way, right? What are you reacting to? And then nurturing with self-compassion. Usually in those moments, I will also put a hand over my heart. When you put a hand over your heart for over 2 breaths, or you hug somebody for at least 2 breaths, you actually release oxytocin into your own body. It's the same feeling we get when we hold an infant, right? That oxytocin that we all need. We need that human connection. But if we nurture ourselves with self-compassion, not only can we put a hand over our heart and give ourselves some of the love that we need, but we also can start some self-talk in that moment. Like, I know that felt really scary for you, and that's okay that you wanted to run away. And I'm so proud of you for being able to sit with this and lean into the feeling. So whatever form that takes, being able to nurture ourselves. And you're right, Amanda, it is so hard to do. So hard to be present with whatever we want to react to. And so if we do this regularly, then when that fight or flight reaction kicks in, if we've done it enough, it kind of naturally starts to happen, right? At the beginning, we need somebody else to walk us through it usually, which is why the app and playing something from Tara where she goes through the RAIN technique can be really helpful. Or sitting with your therapist and the therapist walking through it, right? So we usually at first need somebody else to help us with most of these techniques. But whichever ones we find helpful, then practicing that over and over to where it becomes second nature. So the other one I have up on here is 4-7-8 breathing, right? So pranayama, which is a yoga practice of training the breath, engages that parasympathetic nervous system response. So it teaches the brain to calm down, to relax. And there's different techniques for this, but I really like the 4-7-8. So I'd like us to practice that together. Breathing in for 4 seconds, holding it for 7 seconds, and then breathing out for 8 seconds. Oh, I don't have my cell phone. I was going to time it. I'm going to trust you all can count because it's hard for me to do it and count at the same time. So allowing yourself to breathe in, hold, and exhale. In, hold, exhale. In, exhale. In, hold, exhale. And allow yourself to breathe naturally. Right? We usually don't have to do a lot of that for it to calm us down. I don't like that one when I'm in the midst of a panic attack. I don't find that it works well for clients in the midst of a panic attack. But when they're in a shame attack, that can work really well. Or when they're feeling really helpless, that can work really well. So we've practiced some techniques from self-soothing to, obviously we didn't practice taking a bath, to meditation, RAIN, the 4-7-8 technique. And hopefully by practicing it, you kind of found some options that allow your sense of calm and center to really come back for you. And I'm guessing that you found certain ones more helpful than others. So I'm curious for you guys, what felt the most effective for you of all those techniques?
The breathing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the chat does have a lot of people that like rain and breathing. I often find that the sort of more advanced meditation is the hardest for people. So I don't start with that. You know, the may I be at ease, may I be safe, may I be filled with loving kindness. That is often a lot harder to stay present, to repeat those things over and over. And so I actually run a recovery Dharma meeting at Eastwood. We had other people pre-COVID, but I've been doing it since COVID. And what I found is, you know, in those first 30 days clean, we cannot focus. So the way I did it for you guys was very much like how I do it for the guys in treatment, where I repeat the phrases to you, right? But when you actually sit and you allow yourself to go over those phrases again and again, and you sit for 20 minutes or 30 minutes with that meditation, you know, we probably did 3 minutes, maybe more, but when you sit for 20 or 30 minutes, it's really hard. The brain jumps all over the place. It also, long-term, does the most for your prefrontal cortex to really re-engage the front part of the brain that allows yourself to observe, to not react. So I suggest that you kind of continue to try those. I do see a comment, and I absolutely hear you, Britt. Those first 30 days clean, crying for the entire meditation. I think I cried for 3 years. It was not fun. Every time I'd sit in meditation, the tears would come. I had so much in my heart that needed to come out. Yeah, neuroplasticity, really what we're doing when we're saying mindfulness and trauma is we're changing the brain on a cellular level to respond differently. I kind of liken it to autopilot. So if every day I'm driving to work and I go out of my driveway and go right, and every day I drive to work, I go out of my driveway and I go right. Well, after a while of every day going out of my driveway and turning right, then I'm naturally going to go out of my driveway and turn right, right? That autopilot kicks in. And if I've reacted to trauma over and over that way, well, if I get a different job and I have to go out of my driveway and turn left, there's going to be a pause. Wait, what am I doing? Where am I going? Oh yeah, I go left now, right? So, okay, I go out of my driveway, I go left. I go out of my driveway, I go left. I get used to that new habit. And then still, sometimes I will go out of my driveway and go right because there's that rut in the brain. And if we have that rut in our brain, it's really hard to kind of pull the cart out of the tracks to get going onto something different. But we have found that when you do something different for long enough and consistent enough, the neural pathways in the brain change. And so those reactions are not as intense over time, and those reactions are less frequent over time. And I think the other thing we learn to do over time is to change our lives in a way that doesn't push the same buttons. You know, we don't have to stay in abusive relationships or be around people that don't genuinely care about what's best for us. So, going on? So there are some more options for retraining the brain. I mentioned the Insight Timer app. I like that one partially because it's free. We love free. But it's all Buddhist meditation teachers that have recorded them. Now, that does not mean that they're all good. They are also rated by the people who have done them. So usually, if you do one that's a 4.8 star rating, it's a good one. But if you're like me, I can be judgy in my head. If I'm trying to do a sleep meditation and some lady sounds all hippy-dippy trippy, I don't want to listen to her. So try it. Find the ones that work for you. Just like with all of these other techniques, it's finding what works for us. And with our clients, it's allowing them to say what works for them. I teach people a ton of techniques, but I acknowledge that not all of them are going to work for them, right? Not all of them work as well for me. And so helping them figure out, what gives me the most relief, what allows me to kind of come down from that, and really, really feel grounded and less reactive, right? And then I included some resources for Recovery Dharma. If you aren't aware of it, Recovery Dharma is, and I'm not here to do a promo for it. I don't want it to feel that way. But it's a recovery approach that covers everything. It looks at all addictions, including codependency, sex addiction, workaholism, gambling addiction, food addiction, all addictions as a means of either seeking pleasure or avoiding pain. And that really is our trauma response. So if I'm seeking pleasure or avoiding pain, we do actually sometimes do it the other way around. We really get miswired sometimes, and we do start to avoid pleasure and seek pain if that's what we've been comfortable with. That's kind of the rut in the brain, if you will. But Recovery Dharma has a very empowering approach. It's not about, I was a raised 12-stepper. I have worked through countless numbers of fourth and fifth steps and worked through all 12 steps many times. And that still is the foundation that holds true for me. But I don't need to look at character defects in the same way anymore. I don't need to beat myself up in that way. I've really found a gentler approach through Recovery Dharma of looking at those reactions are a natural reaction to anything that is uncomfortable. And how do I learn to respond in a more wise way to the things that push my buttons? So Recovery Dharma, there are in-person meetings in the Metro Detroit area, but there's also about 10 online meetings a day. They existed online really before it became in person as much. And so there's a strong online community, and the meetings aren't huge, whereas I've often found with 12-step virtual meetings, a lot of them are huge. So there's some resources there if those are helpful to you, both for yourself and your work with clients. We've gotten through this relatively quickly today. So I want to take some time for Q&A if people want to share their experiences of what has worked for you or what you find important in this work, or if there are any questions. We have time for that.
And feel free to unmute yourself, so you can just unmute yourself or put the questions in the chat. Any questions, any thoughts, or just wanted to share your experiences? I can share just maybe to help people maybe feel more comfortable with mindfulness and movement, in that I can say for me recently, like I said, I've been meditating since I was in 6th grade. Didn't know it was meditation. Our teacher was great at teaching it to wild 12th, 6th graders, not even knowing we were doing it. But recently, and I never liked exercise, I was a person that I was blessed, but not blessed being naturally skinny. That came with its own problems being that way. But now I'm enjoying movement, but I'm finding, and I was blessed that I get to have a Peloton because my husband gave me that gift of that, because he knew I did not like anything, but I needed to do something. My blood pressure after having a baby was way too high. We had to find something to start addressing my health. But I can honestly say, the coaches on there are so empowering that I have cried now the last 2 months just riding a bike for 20 minutes, just from their empowerment and then letting myself being in the moment. So there's lots of things that we can do for mindfulness. If anyone has other things that you don't expect to have those reactions, I've been doing this and practicing for 10 years in clinical, never cried during movement. All of a sudden I'm on that bike and they're going, "You're here today, you presented for yourself." I'm like, "Yes, I am. I am here for myself today." And I was never expecting that. So if there's anything you guys would like to share, I know I'm seeing some things here. The PowerPoint was emailed out, so if you did not receive that, let us know. For that question is thank yous. Do you have any other training scheduled regarding the trauma and addiction? Is one question.
I may be presenting at the fall SUD conference on trauma-informed relapse prevention, if my topic gets picked.
Yeah, I would like to have a part 2 of this to go a little deeper. So thank you for today. I think it's wonderful reminders, helpful not only personally, but professionally. And I just felt like we were getting to that tip of it. And I'd love to even know more of some of those skills and exercises and retrainings that you do with your clients.
We could do that.
The SUD conference is September 16th and 17th, I believe. It's a Monday, Tuesday. If you go onto I'm going to mess up this acronym, but the CMHA or whatever website, CMHA, AMA, they keep changing it. Sorry, guys, but something along those lines. If you Google Michigan SUD Conference 2024, they just, I think today or this week is the last extension for presentation, so we should soon see registration so you can stay informed for that. But hopefully that is there, because there's lots of now more comments asking for part 2. So, or CMHE, yeah, that one. Nope, dyslexia is now mixing it all up in the brain.
CMHAM.
Thank you.
Thank you, whoever put that in there. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you. And someone else said, say more like to go deeper. Someone really related this to the freeze, fawn, flop information. They hadn't heard that before. Best training someone's attended in a while. This training enhanced some other trauma trainings that they've been doing, so they loved it. I think I just went through. Again, I saw a couple of questions about the PowerPoint that was emailed. I can re-email it again, but it was emailed this morning, if I remember correctly.
And if I can just comment for a second, I think a lot of people know the freeze response, right? That if fight or flight doesn't work, or the trauma goes on too long, or the stress goes on too long, we just learn to freeze, do nothing, right? Because nothing works. I've found in clinical practice that almost nobody is aware of the fawn or flop responses. I often felt like I was crazy because I felt like I was the only one who ever did flop. This like numb feeling all the way down my arms, like I can't even move them, where all I want to do is like curl up in a ball until it goes away. And that actually is more common. Once you start talking about it, your clients are like, yeah, I do sometimes feel that. What is that? And yeah, Amanda, we're not crazy. It really is real. You know, and so that flop response, whether it's in the arms or in the legs, when you help a person understand what's going on, that you've learned for so long, you can do nothing, your body literally says, okay, do nothing. So being able to like be kind with myself, sometimes what I need in those moments is a hug or to curl up in a blanket, you know, not just to avoid it and curl in a ball, but to actually give myself the nurturing that I need. And the fawn response, you know, what was it, Stockholm syndrome is kind of that where you sort of learn to get in line with whoever's abusing you. And you learn to try and please them and make sense of it. And a lot of people do that. And so normalizing that as a trauma response really helps people to start to be aware of it so that they then can begin to change it. You know, we can't change what we're not aware of. Yeah, and the fawn response often is the beginnings of codependency. A lot of addicts and alcoholics are codependent long before they find substances. So thank you for pointing that out, Amanda. You're absolutely right.
Any other questions, comments? You know, I thought I have right now is everyone have the urges to not go to your phone and do that response, because that's probably a dissociation. Every single person in this entire planet now, stay away from your phones for a little bit.
Absolutely. I think we dissociate on our phones all the time. We check out of our brain and body. Yep. Speaking of your phone, there is an evaluation that does need to be done. So if you could, you can scan the QR code with your phone and do the evaluation. Next month, the talk is what parents need to know about vaping, right? We have figured out now that vaping is not so good for us. It is the same as smoking. So join us next month for that one. Again, you can register and do it online, or you can come in person.
And the link for the evaluation is also in the chat. If the QR code is not working for you, the evaluation will be open until noon tomorrow. Please allow our training department 10 to 14 business days to get the certificates to you. So when you complete the evaluation, make sure you use the name you'd like on your certificate, as well as the email address that you would like the certificate to go to. If within 10 to 14 business days you don't receive it, feel free to reach out to me, Anna Jessup. My email is all over the website with the registration, and I can help connect you to get the certificate. I found sometimes, usually if it's missed, it's just from like a spelling error done in the evaluation or something like that. So please feel free to reach out. And so see next month, May, we have our next presentation, and we look forward to seeing everyone there. So give a few minutes. We'll stay online if there's any questions or any issues with the evaluation or any follow-up feedback or comments that you have. But if not, have a great night. I don't know if it's still raining. If it is, enjoy the sound of it at least, because I know it's the cold spring rain, but they say April showers bring May flowers, and hopefully that comes very, very soon. Thank you all.